Hello there, YouTubes. Forgive me if I forego my more jokey, regular intro, given the seriousness of today's topic. Today I'm going to be talking about the Grenfell Tower corporate manslaughter massacre. For those who don't know, I'll briefly outline the events that took place. Just before 1 a.m. on Wednesday morning, so just over 2.5 days ago, as I'm filming this, a fire started on the 4th floor of the Grenfell Tower, which was a housing complex, a housing apartment building in London, mainly with, lived in by people of low socioeconomic status. I suppose it could be described essentially as slum housing, for want of a better phrase. Forgive me if the camera starts shaking now. Rory Katz has decided to be a dickhead. There he is. Hello, Rory. Anyway, fire started on the 4th floor of the Grenfell Tower, which is located in the borough of Islington in London, West London. Within an hour, the fire had spread to the top floor of the building, 24-story building, and it's essentially made it a shell. It's a burnt-out husk of a building there. The death toll is potentially truly fucking staggering. The official number is 30 at the moment, or just over 30 at the moment, but that number will be drastically higher in reality. The reason I can't give you an exact number right now is because the government have put what's called a D notice on that information, which basically means for reasons of national security, which is a fucking joke of an excuse, they can't reveal that information. And when I say can't, they won't. They could, they're not gonna. Certainly not now, because it's politically sensitive to do so. And some are suggesting it's going to be over 100. I've heard some speculate that it could be over 300, which would just be fucking breathtaking if that were true. But that is just speculation. I can't confirm that at the moment. Yeah, so a lot of people have died, and this was an incredibly avoidable tragedy. The housing association, the residents committee, had put out a warning in, I believe, November of last year, so November 2016, saying that they felt that only a massive disaster would actually get the council and the housing association to deal with their concerns properly. They had very, very serious concerns about the safety of the refurbishments that were made to the building only months before. They included what seems the probable cause of the huge spread of the fire, and therefore the huge death count, which was cladding put on the outside of the building, which was done for ostensibly aesthetic reasons, so that the rich people that live nearby didn't have to look at this, like I say, slum housing, basically. And indeed, the impact on the housing prices in the surrounding area, because even though these people were very poor, this was a pocket of deprivation in what is one of the richest parts of one of the richest cities in the world. It's hugely affluent for the most part, but this was a pocket of deprivation and poverty within that borough. Islington and Chelsea being, like I say, one of the richest places in the fucking world, basically. So, I mean, even less excuse for the penny pinching and cutting of corners, which has led to this, because as I'll get onto in a moment, or I'll get onto the ramifications of on a personal level in a moment, these deaths were potentially avoidable for the sake of £5,000, because the panels, the exterior cladding panels that were put on the outside of the building, were made of a more flammable material, because they were £2, that's £2 sterling, British pounds, cheaper than the non-flammable version. £2 per square meter cheaper, which accounts for in total £5,000, which is around what, $7,500 US, something in that range. So we're talking a fucking drop in the ocean, an absolute pittance, nothing at all, basically. And for want of that tiny sum of money, these lives have now been lost. It would appear. It certainly would have made it vastly more likely that fewer people, or vastly more likely that fewer people would have died had that cladding, had the proper cladding been in place, and had rules been in place to stop that cheap, flammable shit being allowed to be put on the outside of buildings as well. So that's the events that took place. The official death toll we don't know yet, like I say, but it's likely to be north of 3 figures, which basically puts it as a fucking huge, damnable tragedy. And like I say, as far as I'm concerned, this is a corporate manslaughter massacre. I don't see how you can see it as anything other than that. It's an absolute fucking disgrace. Justice needs to be served. I don't know exactly precisely where the legal damage or the legal accountability needs to go in terms of the housing people at the local council or the people in charge of fire safety on the local housing association or whatever. I don't know exactly where that is, but I know where culpability lies, even if it's not legal culpability. And that's with the likes of David Cameron, George Osborne, Theresa May. George Osborne, the Chancellor, who's instilled austerity in the country, partly cutting of fire services. David Cameron, who boasted in 2012 who wanted to get rid of the culture of health and safety in this country, which has led to drastic reductions in, they call it red tape. It's protection of human beings is what it is. Regulations placed upon corrupt financially vested institutions that are happy to house people in slum housings that are unsafe. And that's why you need regulations to stop these fuckers from doing it. And Theresa May, of course, who, as Home Secretary, took it upon herself to take fire services under her jurisdiction and then cut them enormously. As well as Prime Minister last year, enforcing the Tories to vote against a bill introduced by Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, which would have increased regulation on housing safety. So you would have had better health and safety regulation placed upon buildings and stuff. But Theresa May and the Tories voted against it. So brilliant. And Theresa May as well, now as Prime Minister, of course, her response to this has been fucking disgusting. Has yet to go to the area and meet with residents. She's been to the area and talked to a small number of firefighters and has been to a hospital, I believe, to talk to some of the victims. But not to the area to actually speak to residents and assure them and do what you would expect and fucking demand that a Prime Minister or President or, whatever head politician would do. And she hasn't done that. She singularly refused to do that, citing security reasons, which is interesting considering the Queen has been there and done it. Prince William was also with the Queen, went there and did it. Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the opposition, has been there and done it and was out there giving hugs to people and reassuring them in the way that you would expect a Prime Minister to fucking do, Mrs. May. So security wasn't a problem for them, but apparently security for her is. It's ridiculous. Yeah, so she hasn't been there, and she's a fucking disgrace. And our government needs to fall. Austerity kills across the fucking board, okay? Austerity, whether it be removal of health services, whether it be slashing of police services, whether it be slashing of firefighting services, whether it be cutting back on all manner of security concerns, all of this, reducing health and safety regulation, it's ridiculous. And not just that, but the Tories, I think it was a good point that was made. Of the 312 Tories that voted against that legislation last year that would have forced landlords to have better health and safety for their tenants, 80 of those Tory MPs are landlords. So, a quarter, slightly more than a quarter of them are landlords, which is such an obvious fucking clear conflict of interest, and they don't care. And the media are complicit in this bullshit because they don't even fucking report on this. disgusting. It really fucking is. The complicity of all of these powerful institutions in shitting on the poorest in our society. And this brings me on to a topic which I've sort of been meaning to make a video on for a while, because I do get asked occasionally about whether I'm patriotic or not, whether I would describe myself as patriotic. And it's things like Grenfell Tower, and not just the fact that look, fires can happen. Obviously, people can die in fires, obviously, but it's the reasons that led up to it and the response to it, which means I cannot describe myself as patriotic. I cannot be patriotic about this country. And that's not to say I despise it, although I think it's entirely wrong or bad or whatever. That would be a nonsense. It's obviously much more complex than that. But as being a patriot, a patriotic individual, I can't be that. Because for the want of £5,000, we've allowed 100+ people to fry to death. Or well, technically, smoke inhalation gets most fire victims, but you know what I mean. We've allowed them to die in fire for want of £5,000. I'm sorry, that's not a country I can be patriotic about. And we do need to make a choice here, people. Either we are a country that is prepared to allow 100+ people to burn to death, or we're rich enough to allow fucking huge tax cuts for billionaires in the corporation tax rate and all that, and a country that's about to spend £100 billion on fucking nuclear weaponry. And the thing is, I'm not even going to get into the rights and wrongs of nuclear weaponry here, right? But if nuclear weaponry is there to protect the country, well, frankly, a country that allows people to fucking burn to death in their fucking beds for want of £5,000 is not a country that's worth fucking defending, with nuclear weaponry or otherwise. I'm always reminded at times like this of the quote, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And what I take from that quote is that I'd rather us fail as a nation. I'd rather us as a nation crumble into the dust, trying to preserve decency, trying to be something worth defending, than to stumble on as this fucking Tory vassal state, this fucking tax haven for rich scum to just come here. I mean, Corbyn says, and I think quite rightly, at least on a temporary basis, I think, if we've got mansions in the local area that are fucking empty, let's house people there. And I've got a problem with central government then, or local government, paying the rich people who own those houses some sort of standard rent, so that the people that are local can have somewhere to fucking live in the short term, and then we can rehouse them and so on and so forth. But we've got the properties there. But no, rich people always come first. We'd rather have empty fucking houses and homeless people than have people housed in those fucking places. Remind me again why I should be patriotic? Because it seems to me like you can go fuck yourself for your patriotism. You can stick it right up your fucking ass. I'm not interested. Like I say, either the country needs to remain something worth defending, or fuck it. Either we try and preserve decency and actual fucking equality and opportunity in this country, or I want there to be fucking riots in the streets. I want there to be fucking... I want no politician who's responsible for this fucking evil shit to have a moment's fucking peace until they're either driven from office or driven to change their fucking policies. Because it's this kind of austerity bullshit which causes deaths. God knows how many. It would be almost impossible to put a fucking figure on it. But they have caused untold havoc with this bullshit, and it needs to fucking stop. So yeah, there needs to be, and not just sacrificial lambs, there need to be a lot of people who are responsible for this shit. They need to go to jail for a very long time. Corporate manslaughter needs to be taken far more seriously in this country. Like I say, either we try and respond to this properly and remain a decent country, or fuck it, burn the whole fucking place down. Theresa May needs to be removed from office. I'm sorry. She's shown herself to be totally uncaring, incompetent, disgusting during the whole of this and before this. Fucking hell. As Home Secretary, she cut the fucking budgets for the fire service enormously. Boris Johnson, who's probably going to take over from her at some point in the future, not just got rid of 10 fire stations, but the councillors, right? Obviously, firefighters, right? When you see like burnt, charred corpses as just like a part of your fucking working day, that can have a psychological impact. And so they had counsellors for these people, right, to hopefully get through the psychological damage that can do. And there were only 14 in the whole of London. And this was when he was mayor, right? He took over, there were 14. He reduced it to 2. 14 wasn't enough. 2 certainly fucking wasn't. So for all the bullshit of, the Tory party are gonna, they really care and they want to thank the emergency services. Do they fuck? They've cut them to the bone, endangered all of us, and fucked them fucked the emergency services over as well. Fuck them. Patriotic. Go fuck yourself. Not interested in your bullshit. You can take your flag and fucking wipe your ass with it. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to fucking salute a nation that does all of these things. I'm just fucking not. And until it changes, I won't. Like I say, I'm not interested in your flag. I'm interested in what we do. I'm interested in what we are, not what we pretend to be, not what we claim to be, not what we once were. What we are and what we're going to be is what fucking matters. Unless justice is served, and unless these people are taken care of properly, both those obviously the past and the people that remain. And by the way, mark my fucking words, these Tory cunts will definitely try and screw these people out of their homes, right? Their homes have been destroyed. These people should be rehoused in the local fucking area, ideally on the site or near the site of where they once lived. The place that's now burnt out, of course, which will have to be knocked down and houses built into place. But because it's in Kensington, it's rich land, they'll try and build mansions on them and fuck these people off out of London. You mark my fucking words. They've said they won't do it. You mark my words, they will definitely fucking try and do it. And if they do, again, I want riots in the fucking streets. It's the only language these pricks ever understand, is direct action. And it's sad for me to say this because there's lots of stuff I love about Britain. Lots of stuff. But this, I can't be patriotic about it when this kind of evil shit, for want of £5,000, for want of £5,000, 100 plus people, 100 plus corpses, charred, broken, lives destroyed. Oh, but we're rich enough to give MPs an 11% pay rise. We're rich enough to spend £100 billion on nuclear weaponry. We're always rich enough to bomb places as well, aren't we? Whenever there's an Iraq or a Syria or a Libya, no one ever says, well, this is going to cost a lot of money. Can we really afford this? I thought we were on the verge of bankruptcy. No, you never hear that. There's always money to be found to bomb some brown folk. But when it comes to housing people, looking after the people that live here, nah. We're austerity, austerity, austerity. So you can take your patriotism and you can burn it to the fucking ground. I don't fucking care. Anyway, sorry for this negative one. Hopefully we'll get back to something slightly more humorous in the future, but I just needed to get some shit off my chest. Thank you all for listening and watching. My thoughts, obviously, to the victims of all of this are appalling. But, I mean, they're never going to watch this, so I suppose it doesn't really matter. But let's try and learn from this and make sure it never fucking happens again. Pip pip.